Hey everyone, I'm Nick, and today we're working on my Supercharged Range Rover again. If you're not familiar with this truck, I bought it for $850 and rebuilt it to get it back on the road. I recently did a full alignment on this truck, but the inner and outer tie rods were worn out and really hard to adjust. In this video, we're taking care of that by installing some new ones. Alright, so with the truck in the air and the wheel off, here's what we're looking at. So we have outer tie rod, inner tie rod, our boot, which we'll be replacing too, and the ball joint, which is part of the outer tie rod here. So one thing you can do before installing your new tie rods is to measure the number of threads here. That will give you a ballpark of where it's in alignment, and that'll allow you to just, when you put the new parts on, have them in about the same space, which you can use to move the truck around or get it to an alignment shop. Now, the first thing we want to do is loosen this nut, and then we'll keep moving. Actually, yeah, usually what you want to do is remove this clamp here so that the inner tie rod can spin inside the boot. We're going to do it, but we're replacing this boot anyway, but the idea is to not damage the boot if this spins. So let's start with that. Now, ideally you want to use a wrench that is the right size. I don't have that. I think it's like an in-between size for my set. All right, let's get this. There it goes, turning a bit now. That's a good sign. Oh, that's just turning, well, the inner tie rod's turning in here, which is good because we want to be able to remove this from the inner tie rod. Now with that done, we know it's loose, we know this will come off here. And that is a great start. Next we want to remove the outer tie rod ball joint. So we have a 22 millimeter here. And on the inside, if we need to, we've got a 6 millimeter hex head, which can just pop in here to hold it in place if we need it. That's a good outcome because didn't need to hold that. Now we just have to knock this out. If you ever need to hammer on something that you want to reuse, we're not reusing this, but you would leave the nut flush with the head of the whatever bolt or stud you're using, and then you can just hammer on that. All right, let's try things with this ball joint separator. Ooh, just be careful around these. There we go. Now you'll notice here, when I turn this, everything turns. And that's because there's a ball joint back here, which allows this to move up and down while still letting the steering move. So what we need to do is we need to grab this and hold it in place while we unscrew the outer tie rod. Yeah, this has to unscrew. I'm wedging the 15 here to hold that, and I'm gonna crank on this, my adjustable wrench. Once you get it loose enough, you can just get it out by hand, but. Now the reason we're separating these is actually because this collar here, which locks the outer tie rod in place with the jam nut, doesn't come with the kit, so we want to reuse that. In a pinch, you could probably cut one of the bars, cut the nut, and get this out. It's a lot of threads. Finally, okay, there we go. So I'm gonna keep this safe. We'll clean it out, I think. So if we can, we should take this off. No, is it 24? Oh, yeah, that might work. The reason we're doing this, taking this nut off, is because we want to be able to take the boot out without tearing it. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but it makes it easier. And the big reason we're replacing this is because, see, this section here is really worn down. It's like chewed up. So if you look back here, can see there, that's the Oetiker clamp that holds the inside of the boot. So we're going to cut that, pry it apart. Cut that or pry it apart. I guess you can use a screwdriver in there. Okay, that's popped out. Now we can pull the boot off. Let's slide this out. Come on. There we go. That's the inner tie rod. So see it attaches to the steering rack and this thread's on. So we got to use a tool to get this off. Will this fit in here? Should. If we have the right size. Wow, it's bigger than anything I have. All right, I guess we do have to use our giant adjustable wrench because I don't have a large enough tool for that, so. Okay, got it. As always, if you're working under a car, make sure it's safe to work in that space. Get that out. Okay, you can see here, that's what it looks like. So the part I'm using is this one, limp order 29580010009. It's the same on both sides. Got our new jam nut here. I won't put it on yet because we have to put the boot on first. Okay. Now, closest torque spec I could find to this is on the Range Rover Sport, and it was for 100 Newton meters. Now, as we saw, I don't have the ability to use my inner tie rod tool, so I'm gonna have to guesstimate, which I don't love, but it should be fine. All right, that's the inner tie rod in. The part we're using, the boot, is limp order 30254010009. I actually got this all in a kit from FCP Euro, so it's inner tie rod, outer tie rod, boots and clamps for both sides. You can see back here, there's like a lip there. And we want to make sure that is where this sits. That's on one side, but not on the other. Okay. Okay. Now we're on all the way around. And this has cleared the threads there. Let's get this clamp in. So what we're gonna have to do to tighten this down is either use there's a special tool, but you can also use like a cutter and gently squeeze it in, or side cutter as well, depending on where you can fit it. In our case, there's a lot of structure around here. We're probably gonna go in from the side and clamp it down where it was back here. So pop this over, get it into that slot. There we go. I guess you could come in from the back there. Oops. I'll make sure this stays on, click together. You don't want to go too hard with your clamps. You don't want to cut through it either. Not squeeze it. So yeah, it's not going anywhere. Okay. Now we're not attaching it yet, but we have to put the clamp in place because we can only get it on while the jam nut's not on. So now we can put the jam nut on. Here. Go to the area where it was, you can stop it there. And then I'm gonna clean this out and we'll put that on as well. But right now it's full of dirt, so for the little collar here, you'll notice one side's a little thicker than the other. This is flared, and you want that flared wider side to be on the outside because that's gonna grab onto this piece here. As you can see, has a little taper, and so it'll squeeze it and lock it on the threads so that this can't back out or spin in, since this can just spin freely because of the ball joint. Pop that in, and then I guess we can start working this on. One thing I'm going to do beforehand is I'm actually going to put a little bit of anti-seize in these threads so that in the future it'll make it easier to adjust and actually later when we put it on the ground, do the alignment, it'll be a little easier to adjust. Using an old chopstick. And this is optional, it's up to you. Whatever you want to do. I've read this works well, but it is up to you. This outer tie rod is Limp Order 295790109. Now this is a dust cover, we'll leave it on for now. If you need to move this to thread it on easier, just do so. Alright, pop that out. Now we have to work on the ball joint. So you see here, I want to fit that on. May have to jack up the wheel. Let's see what we can do. Because this is sagged a bit right here. So now this won't angle down, and I certainly don't believe I can lift that up myself. So we're gonna jack it up from here. I guess we have the option to just turn this out. Okay, that's in. Now I just have to get our little nut up there. Oh yeah, so now it's just turning in there, so that's why we have this. Pop that in there. And it's certainly not lined up, so I'm gonna bring this back in. Still 15? Yep. Okay, so we're bringing it in, so I'm gonna turn this. Everything's pretty much in place now. We're gonna leave this off until we finalize the alignment. We're not gonna tighten this much until we finalize the alignment. Well, maybe we'll snug it up. But we wanna torque this to spec. And this is 70 Newton meters on this nut. And that is a 22, I think. Let's torque to spec. Pretty much done until it's aligned. That's torqued. That's torqued. This is in place, pretty much where we want it. And this one, later on, we have to get to around 55 Newton meters. All right, now we have to do the same thing on the other side.
For this side, the tie rods were seized together, so I decided to go a different route and remove them as a unit.
All right, so I'm gonna pull the boot off, and maybe we can remove the inner tie rod, just take this all out and work on it on a vise or something. Because right now, it's pretty stuck. So let's get our screwdriver in here. And we have to bring this down. Okay, let's get to a vise now, because we need to get this retaining ring, so.
To separate the tie rods and get the lock collar, I used heat and PB Blaster until I was able to unscrew them. Another option is to cut them, and you can do either of these in place on the truck. And now we can put it all back together.
Okay. There we go. Felt that seat. I'll show you that real quick. There. Okay, now we put this in. And once again, thick side towards the inside, thinner side with the with the flare outside. It's settled, so I'm gonna have to jack this up now, just like on the other side. Going to 70 Newton meters here. That is it. Now we can put our wheels back on and align it. Oh, that's not straight. But if you measured it properly and set it up like that while it's in the air, you should be good to drive to the alignment shop. All right, so we're torquing the lug nuts to spec. I put a little chalk right there so that it doesn't roll forward when I'm tightening.
Now it's time to re-level the truck and settle the suspension so it's ready for me to align it. I have another video where I did the full alignment on this truck where I show this in more detail, and I'll leave a link in the video description. The alignment system I'm using is a Quick Trick 5th generation string alignment setup.
All right, so right here, we want a tiny bit of toe out. We want 0.15 degrees out. So that's gonna be on this, based on the numbers I have, it's gonna be just on the other side of square. So if you wanna see a little more details about how to do the alignment, I'll put a link to the video where I did the full alignment previously. So right now I have a little bit of toe in, so I'm going to bring it to toe out. So to do toe out, the tie rod mounts to the front of the disc, so I wanna make it longer to angle the wheel, the front of the wheel, outwards. Back that off, and then we wanna oh, I went too far. That looks good, so what I do here is run this in. I should get a 24 really, because that's the size, but it's snugged up. Should be good. Okay. There we go. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Are you serious? We might actually be pretty close to spec. That's good. Yeah, we gotta bring it a tiny bit more out. We should be good to go. Out means we wanna essentially unscrew this side. So it's gonna be this side. Oh, I gotta pull that out. Okay. Let's tighten that up. Oops. All right. Oh, damn it. Oh, okay. That's it. Now, it's usually recommended to do all 4 wheels to realign it. So be sure to do that when you change your tie rods. You're good to go. So that's the truck aligned with brand new tie rods. There's surprisingly good access to everything, so even if you end up with a stuck tie rod like I did, you should be able to get things apart without too much trouble. If this video helped you out, don't forget to leave a like, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe and check out the full rebuild of this truck if you haven't seen it already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.